So let's jump right in. The reason why I personally picked you is because you you were raised elsewhere and you came to Lowell, correct?
Yes.
And what I want to dig into is how you impacted Lowell and why you still stayed here with us, which we're so happy that you're here. So could we start with where was you born?
Well, I was born in Elma, Michigan, so I'm an Almanac or an Almanian, whichever you want to call me, and graduated from Elma High School in 1974. And then I went to Calvin College for a year, and after that I decided at the end of that freshman year, I kind of decided that it wasn't a very good fit for me, so I ended up going to Michigan State.
Wow.
Go
Now,
green.
did you, because you're such a great coach for our volleyball team, were you an athlete? Was that your go-to sport through school?
Well, when I was in high school, Title IX passed in 1972, so that would have been my sophomore year. And so I played basketball, and I played volleyball, and then I ran track, even though I wasn't very good at it. They had what's called a softball throw in track at the time, and so that was kind of my go-to. I was not very fast. I hated running long distances, so I was more a field events person. And they didn't have a softball team at the time. I played softball, slow pitch softball in the summer. And so that was, I didn't go to Michigan State. I didn't go to Calvin specifically to play sports. I did end up being the manager for the volleyball team, and then I played on the softball team. So when I got to state, totally different kind of thing. I played on the volleyball team and didn't make the softball team. So anyways, but they did win a national championship the year my one roommate played for them. So anyways, but I kind of thought about going into phys ed because I just like the running around and that kind of stuff. But my mother told me, she said, well, do you want to be doing that when you're 50 years old? And so I thought, I don't know. So I changed to English. Well, about halfway through my teaching career, I was like, yeah, Mom, I do want to be doing that when I'm 50 years old because I don't have to correct all sorts of papers. But I did enjoy it. I enjoyed English, and I like the subject. I like the writing. Creative writing was one of my favorite classes to teach. Taught Shakespeare. I taught journalism. I was the not the yearbook editor, the school newspaper advisor for several years. So,
for Michigan State?
No. This is for Lowell. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I should have made that distinction.
You're fine.
No, but I did end up switching my major. My minor was phys ed. And I think at the time, because it was so early on in the girls' sports process, that they were looking for coaches, and so they saw it when I hired in to Lowell, and so they saw that my background was volleyball, and that's one of the reasons why I got the job. So
was it so you went from living in Elma, to coming to Lowell, living in Lowell. And I remember the first year that you were in Lowell. It was in the 80s. No, it was 70s.
1979, yeah.
1979, okay. And I remember when you came to Lowell, my take away from you was, wow. Okay, so she's pretty on top of things. You could tell by the way that you talk to us fellow students, about English and what have you. I never got to take a class with you because your class just filled up immediately. And I never got to figure that out, but I remember I tried out for, I think, volleyball with you. I didn't make the team, but it was a great experience because you were very, you kept on telling me, it may not be your thing, but I'm glad that you're here, So I started scrambling for the balls, and that was, I didn't realize, an important job, So I was the dork grabbing the balls.
Not a dork at all. It's something really necessary.
But I appreciate that. That was my takeaway from you when I was in high school as a teacher. Now I had discussions with other students, like Gloria Gnajak and several of the other girls, and all of them told me, you know what, she brought to the table a breath of fresh air. She gave us a different point of view and let us feel valued. And that was pretty big for, us in the 70s. And, we didn't graduate till 1980. Right. And, but that was their big takeaway from you. Now, how long did you stay? How many years did you put in at Lowell High School before you retired?
29. I think.
Wow.
It was 29. I started in 79, taught, 79, 80, 81. And then I got laid off because enrollment dropped. And of course, I was the last person hired, so I was the first person let go. And I went back to Michigan State and got a master's degree in telecommunications. Because at the time, I didn't really think, it's not how I really liked my job, that kind of stuff. But I was kind of like, well, what am I going to do now? So I went back and got a degree that had nothing at the time to do with education. And so, but what happened was Darwin Sampson retired. I don't know if you remember Sam.
Mr. Sampson.
Mr. Sampson, yep.
Yes.
And so I was on the callback list, and of course they called me up. I was just finishing up my master's degree, and I got a call back from the school and said, hey, we want to hire you back. And so I was kind of like, oh gosh, I just spent 2 years and I don't know how much money to get a master's degree in something that I didn't really think I would ever use, and I was planning on going in a totally different direction. But I went to talk to one of my professors and just said, I just spent 2 years trying to go in another direction. What should I do? Because I've got this job offer. And what he told me, and this guy was like a lawyer. I mean, I think in the telecom era, back in the 80s when they were just starting cable TV, I think Ted Turner had just gotten TBS to be a superstation, and it was just before cable had started. So this guy had been called. His name was Thomas Muth, and he had been called quite a bit by the FCC, by the Federal Communications Commission, because they were trying to work out all these laws and stuff. And so they were always calling him on the phone going, what should we be doing about this and what should we be doing about that? The guy we called him Kingsfield. I don't know if you guys ever knew the movie The Paper Chase.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, okay, so we called him Kingsfield. The professor that was the really hardline professor was named Kingsfield in that. So we called him that because that's the way he treated his undergraduates. He wasn't like that with his grad students, which was good. But I went to him and I asked him, and he said, you can always... He said, it's miserable looking for a job if you don't have a job. And he said, you can always walk out on a contract. And I'm thinking, okay, and this guy's a lawyer. So I went back to Lowell and I stayed. I just, I didn't find anything that I was more interested in doing. And so I stayed until 2010, and then I retired. So I had about 29 years in.
Wow.
By the time I got done, so.
Gosh. And then, okay, so in 2010... where did you, because you're still here in Lowell, so what path, I'm trying to figure out what path have you gone? What did you do?
Well, by that time I had a house and I was established in the community. Group of friends that I had been here, since I started, like the Van Antwerps, and Jill Van Antwerp was my department chair at the time, and actually for about the first 6 or 7 years, I think, maybe longer. I'd have to look back, but that's kind of ancient history. And she and Chris were two of the founders of the Arts Council. So that was how I got involved with the Arts Council. I just remember selling a lot of raffle tickets for the quilt and stuff like that. And after
at Fallsburg Festival.
At Fallsburg Festival, yeah.
Okay.
So and we also did when their son was still home. Jill and he used to go out like on a weekend, and they go all over to different places like Smyrna, like the Smyrna Bar, and all these different places around the county, and put out flyers for Fallsburg. And so after Chad went off to college, Jill was like, "Hey, do you want to do this with me?" And so, so we'd go out and spend the whole day on Saturday and drive around. We'd end up like someplace like in Rockford at the corner bar having hot dogs or something like that. As part of the part of the process. And so we did that for years. And I'm not incredibly artistic. I'm a decent photographer, but I'm in terms of and you probably you don't remember this because you didn't have me for a class, but I used to illustrate on my whiteboard what I was trying to say to be like stick figures. I'm sure my students were just like, "Oh my God, this woman is terrible." But I did the best I could with what I had, and so I've been involved with the Arts Council. After I retired, I started doing plays with them. Because I'd always wanted to do that, but I just had way too much stuff on my plate with school and stuff, so I couldn't do it. But so that's been, and we just finished our radio plays this last weekend, which was a lot of fun. I directed an episode of The Shadow, and Kim Miller directed an episode of Fibber McGee and Molly. So we set it up like an old radio show, and it was a lot of fun to do. So
I wish I would have seen it because I missed it. I was out of town, but I had heard rave reviews. Go ahead.
How does the new venue for Lowell Arts work for you? I know you got the great practice room upstairs.
We've got it's kind of cramped, and so you have to do some things that are smaller. I mean, it's not impossible to do. We would like to we'd like to be able to go back to Larkin's. I mean, like the Strand Theater eventually. I'm not really sure how that's going to work out, just because it gives you more space. And it also limits the audience. I think we could max out at 60, and so we did that. But chairs on the floor as opposed to like theater seating and that kind of stuff. So, but it's a nice space for a lot of stuff. I know we canceled our in-house music because of COVID, but once it gets back, it's a very intimate setting, and so
that's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
You like it because it's more intimate.
Yeah,
they're right there.
They're right there. They're absolutely. You can reach out and touch them if you want to. Of course, you probably get in trouble if you did that, but yeah. So it has some advantages for smaller stuff. When we do the Playwrights Festival, where we jury in 10-minute plays. And I think we've decided that we're going to do that every other season because it's just so much fun. And when we do that, because they're 10-minute plays, your sets are minimalist. Your the lighting and everything is minimalist. It's pretty much just flood lighting, so you don't have to do anything really special as far as no real special effects or anything like that. So they're pretty simple. And that is a really good venue for that, I think, because again, the intimacy, you're close. You're rolling through a lot of different productions in like about a 90-minute period.
Okay.
And the nice thing is it's all original stuff. I mean, we've had. I'm trying to think. The last one that I was in was actually the last one we had before COVID, and the author was from Kentucky. Of the show that I was in, and it was about this cab driver who takes this guy. He wants to be someplace else, and so she takes this guy on kind of a fantasy tour of his life, and then he finds out, he goes through despair and all these different things, but the guy was from Kentucky, and he came up for the one weekend because his daughter goes to Michigan State. So he came up for the weekend, grabbed her, brought her over to the production. So we got to meet him, and you get to talk to us as the two actors. There's, Pat Hobbs and I were in that one, and we've also had winners from New Zealand. I mean, we've had people enter from literally all over the world, and it's very, very cool. But Sue Bradford won last time, and she of course is not only one of our local actors in the Arts Council, but she's also a local playwright. She lives in Grand Rapids. She's been with us as an Arts Council for years and years and years in the theater department. Matt Townie has had, he's had plays that we've produced, Brent Alice. So even though we have this huge scope, as far as entries and stuff go, we've had quite a few very, very good local playwrights that have had their shows put on. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. It is, and even though with COVID made it hard to like I went to the virtual Fowlersburg Fall Festival last year, which made it really hard. I think we did all right as far as because just bringing artists to people is the very botched motto of Lowell Arts. That's not exactly how they have it stated, but and in Fowlersburg, we usually, if we've got a good weekend, we will have 15 to 20,000 people there a day, and it goes Saturday and Sunday. So the nice thing about that is that it ties into the community, because we have the churches do food booths, the Lions do a food booth, and the Lowell Historical Society has people out there, the Garden Society. So we have all sorts of different people, and not many of the artists necessarily are from Lowell that come in, but they are from all over Michigan, and they bring a lot of people, and some from Indiana, and it's close enough to drive. But it's a really good experience, and the Arts Council, the Arts Council is just, I think it still is. For a while, it was the largest small community arts council in the state of Michigan. And I think it has still been that way. We go to other places to see what they're doing, and most of it is stuff that we did a long time ago and are progressing farther. But as to that space, being downtown is just a godsend.
Huge.
It is. It's just just the amount of space that we have, the amount of gallery space.
And the quality work that's coming in now in the shows.
Yes.
The exhibitions.
Yes, because it's so much easier. It's so much easier to exhibit now. I always used to go to the artist market, which is on right now until after Christmas. And of course, when I was at the old gallery, it was so small that I wouldn't take my purse in. I'd take a credit card in my pocket, and I'd kind of stand in the middle of the room and kind of do a 360. It's because it was so packed, and I was so worried about, you flip a purse into a display, and there's thousands of dollars worth of stuff that's going to go flying. And so this is just, like you said, Dale, it's amazing. We can do so many things.
That's what's nice about the artist market, is that it gives all local artists now.
Yes.
And which is all, gives all our local people to showcase their talents.
And probably 25 or 30 more people than we could get into the old building. So just in terms of the, I think we had, when we went for the loan and stuff, and we were talking to lenders, obviously, and one of the things was, we've got this much more floor space, and we can do this, but I think we probably quadrupled our floor space, and especially when you count the upstairs. So it's provided us an opportunity to spread out. We have more concerts. We have more in-house concerts, those kinds of things. You see Dale and Cindy and the Adams family there, and just so it's really a lot of fun. So I think that's when you talk about why I didn't leave Lowell. I think part of that is because I have of course I've lived here longer. I think now, let's start counting years. I've lived here longer than I lived anywhere else, even growing up in Alma. So this is kind of I wouldn't consider myself a townie, because obviously I'm not. I'm from out of town, but just those connections, and how it is. You've got they're almost like family, and I have a very small nuclear family. So, and my mom and dad are both passed now. So there isn't that connection to Alma anymore. My sister lives up in St. Louis. My niece is out in the Boston area, and my nephew is down at Michigan State working in the physics department. So I have he's a total.
What a brainiac!
He's
really,
a total brainiac. Yeah, and she's very smart too. But she went into nursing. But she's a heart surgical nurse. Yeah, so she's very smart as well. So they're everywhere, and so it is, when you have a smaller family like that, and the matriarch and the patriarch are gone, it kind of makes it easier to kind of not go back to your hometown. So
this might be a good time to bring in, since you brought up your mom and dad and stuff. the backstory. What's your ancestral? A little bit of your ancestral history here.
Well, my ancestral history is I'm adopted Slovak and adopted English. My mom's ancestors literally got off the Mayflower and came over. They were whites, and so I'm sure I might be related to Robin White's husband, because Rick, because hey, we can go all the way back. I did find out through Ancestry.com my birth mother's heritage, and it was kind of interesting because her family, she was from Texas, but her family came across from England into Virginia. So I think it was like maybe 16. I can't remember when the Virginia colonies were started, but right around the same time. So my adoptive mother up in Massachusetts with the Pilgrims and the Puritans, and my birth mother with the Virginians that came over from England and that kind of thing. So I don't know anything about the dad's side of the family, but that was very interesting to find that out. And so my adopted dad was first generation American. His mom came over from Czechoslovakia right after World War I, and she was 18 when she got on the boat with a cousin, came over here, met Dad's father, who was also from Czechoslovakia, but he had come over earlier. He'd been here, I think, since maybe 1900 or something, and so he was a little bit older. But it's fascinating to see that kind of stuff. But I have a lot of Scottish, which I found appropriate because Scotland Alma is Scotland, USA, the Highland Festival, the Alma Scots, the Alma College Scots. So I kind of found that interesting that DNA-wise, I'm 33% Scottish, and I've got a lot of Irish, a lot of Welsh, and so that whole part of the world is from where I'm from, but.
So another question while I got the mic close to me okay. Is what makes this community special to you?
Oh gosh, there are a lot of things. I think, well, in the first place, when you hire in with a lot of people that you taught for a number of years with, obviously that kind of makes it more of a family. And pretty much everybody that I hired in with in 1979 was from out of town, and most of them stayed here. And so then again, like I said earlier, you develop, friendships and that kind of thing. You put down roots. I think the specialness of Lowell is just that it's got the small town quality of it, but it's not just and I want to say, I don't want to say this in a way that's going to sound derogatory, but when I first started teaching here, probably 75% of my students actually were on working farms. And so when I asked them what they wanted to do and stuff, they were like, well, I'm just going to be a farmer. Like I said, I taught for 2 years, got laid off, came back. And so within that 4 years of my starting here, the whole attitude shifted in terms of if you were a farm kid, you were going to go to Michigan State and study agri-science. So they went from why do I need a college degree to I need this degree to come back and make my family farm, and some of them, of course, were living on centennial farms, make my family farm, make our agribusiness more viable, and so you saw that coming in, and of course with that you have, and then of course we've kind of become a bedroom community of Grand Rapids. I mean, even though we're still quite a ways away, but I like the sense of community, starting with the Fallsburg Fall Festival, starting with the Arts Council, continuing on when we started the Pink Arrow Project,
Lowell Showboat.
The Lowell Showboat, absolutely, Showboat even farther back than of course the Arts Council. And so those were the kinds of things that it's just kind of a cool small town feel. I interviewed Teresa Beecham a few years ago. I nominated her for award from the Marshall Wilcox Award from the school district. And one of the things that she was, of course, talking about, we talked a lot about Pink Arrow because she and Perry have spearheaded that for so long. And she said she gets approached by a lot of people, and they ask her, well, how do we set up something like Lowell is doing? And she said her first question is, do you have a main street? And when she said that, that made a whole lot of sense to me, because if you look at let's say for example Forest Hills, Forest Hills doesn't really have a main street. They're a suburb of Grand Rapids, and there's nothing where you can march a parade down. I'm sure they can, but the idea that there's a central part of it that is the town. I think that does make it a lot harder to pull things together, to have that sense of community, because you're a little bit more spread out and you don't have that focus. And I came from a town that was the same way with the Highland Festival. We started that in '66, and I think they've gone every single year except COVID, that they've had the Highland Festival over Memorial Weekend every year, and so that gives you an identity. Alma is Scotland, USA, and at the one time when they started it, the Highland Festival was the biggest Highland Festival and games in North America. So you get this whole thing with Lowell, with the Showboat, and the Showboat City, of course, Arts Council, Pink Arrow. We've always been very invested in the schools. In terms of, because let's face it, small towns don't have a huge amount of manufacturing. Now we do, but we've kind of lost that. So what's the focal point is usually it's your school district. It's the plays that they do. It's the marching band. It's the athletics. It's the those kinds of things. And so that's what makes Lowell special, is because it's a blend of a lot of different things. It's a blend of the arts. It's a blend of the athletics. It's a blend of the school, and that makes it special to live here, I think. And also we've over the years have brought in a lot more economic diversity, if you will. We don't have as many people. I think now we've probably got, in terms of farming, we've probably got the same percentage of kids that are on working farms as is the national average, and that's about 4%. We also have the mill, and the mill, of course, has been here for, since 1880, I think? Yeah.
It's been here a while.
Yeah, it's been here a while. So you have that, excuse me, my lozenges kind of coming up, but you have that kind of combination of different things. And one of my college housemates came back she grew up in Kentwood, and while she was in the summer worked at Keebler, and then after she graduated, and she ended up going back to Keebler, and so she'd call me one day and she said, well, this is back when I was still teaching. I said, yeah, I was out in Lowell today. And I'm like, why were you out in Lowell? She said, well, Keebler buys all of their flour from King Milling. And I'm like, really? I didn't make the connection, but and so we have a very widespread footprint for a lot of different things. And I think that, again, it makes it a kind of a community feeling. We're still small enough that we don't have the 3 high schools like Forest Hills has or anything like that. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why I decided to stay. I had, like I said, I had roots here, and I had spent most of my adult life here. So,
do you are you a snowbird? Do you go anywhere during the winter?
I really don't like Florida. I mean, I guess I would probably, if I was a snowbird, I would go to maybe Arizona or Southern California. The humidity makes me. I kind of have a little bit of asthma. I kind of tend toward asthma, and I've always had really bad sinus infections and stuff. And the humidity and the mold and stuff just kills me. And the heat with the humidity is. I'd rather stay here. I don't mind the winters, but part of that is because I haven't. Now I'm almost 66, and so I'm going to see how I like the winters as I get older and
Well,
it's
as
more
you get
difficult to
older
drive.
too, you're retired and you don't have, like, I'm a retired school teacher too. I don't
Yeah.
have to worry about driving on icy
That's
roads.
very true. Yes,
now
you don't.
I just get up and it's snowing. Great. I go back to
Exactly.
bed.
Go back to bed. Yeah, I know. I like that. I like that because that was one thing that retirement. All of a sudden, you're like, well, gosh, I don't have to get up at like 4 o'clock in the morning to see if they're going to call school or if I've got to like risk my life, like you
No,
said.
I
getting
don't
up.
have to spend Sunday nights doing lesson plans.
That's right. Yeah, absolutely. It is. That is the advantage of not having to go to work, and so I've been fortunate to be able to be retired and do what I want. And I love to travel, but.
Now, with your love of traveling, and I thought I overheard that you have gone to Ireland.
Yes.
So what countries have you gone to in a whole?
Oh gosh, when I was a senior in high school, we went to Spain, and we were in Brussels on the way over there. And then I didn't do a whole lot of traveling out of the country until I got a job and could actually pay for it. So I've been to New Zealand a couple of times.
Why New Zealand, if you don't mind me interrupting?
No, that's fine. It's kind of an interesting story. I was at a writers' conference in Southern California, someplace, not San Diego, but anyways, and so Anaheim. It was in Anaheim, and I was on an elevator, and of course you have about these Romance Writers of America, and so you have about 3,500 to 4,000 writers at the time would be at this conference. Well, I was on this elevator, and these women behind me had these awesome accents, and I have to admit I am an accent stalker. I love accents, and so my ears perked up, and I turned around. Of course, everybody's wearing a name badge that says where they're from, and there's said New Zealand, and I'm like, oh my gosh, because at the time, Hercules and Xena were both filmed in New Zealand, and I don't know if you guys ever watched those shows, but you're looking at this background, this absolutely gorgeous background, and there was a movie that came out that was Willow was also filmed in New Zealand. And so, and then of course, subsequently Lord of the Rings. But I said, well, do you mind if I said, I love your accents. Do you mind if I just hang out and listen to you guys talk? I mean, what a stalker thing to say. Fortunately, this was back like in 1999, and people weren't quite as
leery,
quite as leery of weird women walking up. Of course, I did have a name tag on, so they could have identified me
definitely.
But anyways, and so the one woman who was just wonderful, she goes, well, I shan't think that I could speak at all, and I'm like, oh my God, this is so great. So I tried to back off and not be a stalker, but it ended up that Jean, the one woman that was of the pair, she was the president and founding person of Romance Writers of New Zealand.
Wow.
And so she said, well, because we got to talking, and we actually ended up kind of running into each other several times, and then before the end of the weekend, we had breakfast together, like the last day. And she said, well, you really should come to New Zealand. And I said, don't tempt me, because, their summer is their winter is our summer.
Okay.
And of course, and she said, well, we have a big writers conference in August. And I'm like, okay, I have August off. And so I ended up the first time back in 1999, I went for, I think it was 19 days, and I ended up, she squired me all around. We had just a blast. And I ended up speaking on American English at their writers' conference. So it was really a
what
lot
an
of fun.
honor.
It was great, and I just told her, I said, if you're gonna drag me around and put me up for 19 days, and if you need speakers, I'll speak at your conference, and I can. And she's like, that'd be great. So that was the first time, and then I went a couple of years later, and it just had a really, really good time. It's a beautiful country. It's just outstanding. And we were driving to the second time I was there. We were driving, and at that point they had filmed the first Lord
of the Rings.
Yes.
Okay.
And so we're driving along in the countryside, and all of a sudden you see these mountains in the background. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm having a Lord of the Rings moment. It was like they were just like there, and so But I haven't been back. I've been to Ireland. I've been to England. I did in '96. I helped chaperone a Lowell High School history trip, and so we went to England, the Netherlands, Belgium, so Brussels, Berlin. Where was it? It was like a World War II tour at France. We ended up in France and at the Normandy beaches. That's like the second time I'd been there. I went on a Celtic cruise, which started in the Orkney Islands in Scotland, and then we hit two spots in Ireland, and okay, and I guess so. Anyways, and so I've been to several different countries. Been to Canada several times. I love Canada. So, and it's close. And I have been to Mexico. So I haven't been to South America, but and I do want to go to Machu Picchu. That is on my bucket list. So that'd be the one. Let's plan a group trip, Dale.
Well, it sounds like you need to go with Dale and his wife Cindy too.
Absolutely. I would
do the Galapagos Islands too from there?
I would do that. I would love to. Like I said, it's been on my bucket list forever. I just haven't been, because I've been going to Ireland several times. So yeah, I just, but that is, I love to travel. I love to, like I said, I love to listen to the accents. I speak a little bit of Spanish, and enough Slovak, old Slovak, to get me into boatloads of trouble.
Okay.
Because my dad always used to teach me stuff and then say, don't say that in front of your grandmother. I'd be like, what did I just say? And then when you tell me, it's like, okay, yeah, I understand why we're not saying that in front of grandma. But no, I do enjoy going to countries where I can actually speak the language.
Definitely.
Because it makes me kind of uncomfortable. So if I travel, like, let's say to France, my best friend used to be a French teacher. And she would be my default to be just like, Karen, we're going. Come on.
That's right.
Ingrid Baird's a good friend of mine, and so it's like Ingrid and Bob, her husband, speaks French as well. So, but
I always love that name, Ingrid.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So so fast forward to today.
Okay.
Where do you think that you're going to still end up? Are you gonna retire here and stay here in Lowell, or are you thinking I just might leave and go live in New Zealand?
I don't. Yeah, that would be. Oh gosh, that would be fun. Right now, since I'm on the school board, I'm still anchored here, and I am not really sure. I don't have a plan for how long I'm going to keep trying to be on the school board. I'm up for re-election in 2024, and at that point, I will make a decision. Right now, I just don't see myself leaving Lowell. I would not go to Florida, just because or any southern state where it's so humid. And I don't know. Even though my family is pretty small now, I still feel like my roots are very much in Michigan. And if I did something like that, it would be a seasonal thing. It would be a Snowbird kind of thing, or I might just sell my house and just travel. I'd have to put the cat up for adoption or something like that. But
we'll take your cat. I'll take your cat.
He's a great cat. I kind of had to put my other one down this summer. I know it's so hard.
It is.
But because they are like little human beings, and
they are. What's your cat's names?
Magic. He's my current cat, and then Perseus was the cat that I had before.
Okay.
I got him from my nephew and his wife, and they name all their pets after the Greek gods. So
okay.
The whole Greek pantheon.
Very cool.
They've had Zeus and Athena, all these different. So, anyways, but.
Now, I do want to say before we end this interview that you have written 4 books now.
Yes.
Yep. That is amazing. Well, I don't know how you do it.
I haven't in a long time, and part of that is just because as your life shifts and different kinds of things take over. I am trying to get back into it. I actually do have a manuscript that's completed, but I just haven't gotten it off the shelf and sent it out and tried to get it published. So
What a huge accomplishment. Nobody published any, that to get published, that's huge. And I do appreciate you doing such things, because for me to know somebody personally that, oh yeah, she's a writer. Well, she's wrote 4 books, a manuscript now, that's, but I do have to, on a personal note, tell you that you've been off my radar for a few years. And then I have to tell you, when I saw your name on the Lowell School Board, when you first ran for it, of course I voted for you right away, because
or not. Maybe.
Yes. Well, this is the deal. I always wondered why there wasn't more retired teachers on that school board, because you bring to the table that knowledge, that's your home base. You were a teacher there. You needed to be on the school board, and I always felt that was a huge accomplishment in my book, because we need you there. We need that voice that says, wait a minute, you guys, you don't realize what this is going to entail for these teachers or for the students. You're coming up from the battleground. And I personally appreciate you being there, because, these kids, these kids need great teachers. And a great teacher isn't necessarily that your friend. A great teacher strives to push the envelope and strives to challenge you. And believe me, many of the teachers in my time that I was there, those 4 years in high school, but even prior to high school, Van Antwerp, I had Jill Van Antwerp for our English teacher. I'll tell you, for them to keep their cool and to not just grab their purse or their keys and walk out of that place, I look back and I thank you for being a teacher, for bringing that to the table and showing me that grace. I didn't know that grace then until as an adult now. And I'm going to tell you right now, we definitely appreciate you. We appreciate all the teachers that are there. And what you're doing and what you've done all along, traveling, I really wish I would put a bug in your ear. If you want to go into a business of having a traveling teacher to go out of the country, just for me to be able to flip to you like my 2 grandkids, to go into a business like that, like bring 4 or 5 kids with you. Of course, my husband would go with you too, because he's that way. We would definitely, that's something that I wish I could do. I'm still working, but that would be a great present that we could give to our grandkids or to a kid that wouldn't have had the chance or the opportunity. So thank you, Laurie Kuna, for being here, and thank you for letting us keep you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for being ours.
Oh, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you, you too.
The Lowell Area Historical Museum is proud to sponsor community oral history interviews. The Lowell Area Historical Museum educates, enriches, and inspires our community and visitors through the preservation and presentation of Lowell area history. For reservations and more information, contact the Lowell Area Historical Museum at 616-897-7688.